So, hello and welcome. Just getting set up here. Get all my tools in place. So, welcome to, hi Mary Jane, welcome to another No Days Periscope little quick informal studio session here. Working with some No Days liquid fusing adhesive and trying to see how well it works out with Pate de Verre. I had a question from Larry a couple of weeks ago. It's taken me a while to get to it. And he asked if it was possible to use the liquid fusing adhesive directly in a mold and build a Pate de Verre vessel. And I don't see why it wouldn't work. I've made some somewhat Pate de Verre-ish pieces by just working on a clear base. So this piece started out, that was the top that you're looking at. It started out like that on a clear base, and then I just built upwards with painting a design on it and then adding the frits. So this plate is entirely frits except for the clear glass base that it started on. So the idea here is kind of the same. Put this aside over here, except instead of the clear glass base, I'm going to be using the mold. So for starters, I'm going to have a shallow mold that I'm working with, but I'm also going to experiment with this deeper mold just because it's more Pate de Verre-ish. So first, I haven't prepped this mold at all, so I'm just going to take this, and this is the Unique Glass Colors glass separator, and this stuff lasts forever, let me tell you. I bought this long ago when it was still Satellite Unique Glass Colors underneath the old owner. But the new owners took over. They're really great. Margot Clark and Dr. Sol and Fam down there. So I'm just going to take, I've thinned it way down already, I believe, and I don't need very much. So I'm just going to take my foam brush and prep this mold. I want to get some separator on there so that the glass doesn't stick to it when I fire. So I'm just going to go in here and brush some on here, and then it'll dry up. Now, if you wanted this to move, the actual piece, if you were slumping it and you wanted something to move inside of it and go down deep like that, you would want to add some of, they have another product called Free that you would probably want to dust the edges of the vessel that you were slumping into with. I haven't had a problem with the Unique Glass Colors separator, I guess the Unique Glass separator, on the shallow molds that I use, but I have noticed that if you're working with a deeper vessel and the glass is going to fall into the vessel, you're going to want to put a little bit of that Free coating on there. So that's plenty right there. It's hard to see, but that's plenty on there, so I'm just going to let that dry. I'm going to set that aside and work with my other one. This square mold has already been prepped with the Unique Glass separator. The nice thing about this stuff is you never, that's right, never have to take it off and put it back on. Is that not amazing or what? So I'm one of those glass people that actually likes to play with glass, not do all the work to get ready to play with glass. So I really dislike having to prep molds, take anything off, and then put it back on. So I'm going to go ahead and start right here, and let me see if I can't just prop this mold up a little bit so you guys have a better view of what I'm actually doing. Maybe this will work better. So again, these are my impromptu studio sessions. I invite you to hang out with me in my studio while I work free of charge. That's right. So you can kind of see that there. I've got my paper towel here as well because as I'm working with the frits and the No Days fusing adhesive, it's really sticky stuff. So as I'm working with the frits, they're going to start to get really sticky. So that's what I have this paper towel here for. I'll wipe it off occasionally, my brush occasionally as I work. So normally when I'm doing work with the No Days liquid fusing adhesive and frits, I'm going to show you how I normally start. I actually work dry, so I'll put the frits about where I want them to be, and then I'll take the No Days liquid fusing adhesive, and it has this great little needle nose tip here. Okay, so I come in here and I just wet it, and you'll see it change colors slightly. It looks wet after you wet it. Isn't that amazing? I know it sounds kind of ridiculous to say it, but that's what happens. So I wet it, and then I can come in and sculpt it. So if that's not exactly where I want it to be, I can move it around. So to start with, I get my brush a little bit wet so it doesn't have to worry about soaking up any of the extra powders. And I usually come in with a skewer or a couple of brushes. So if I want to sculpt this in on itself, I can just come in and push it in from both angles. And notice I'm tamping down on it. So I push it in and then I tamp it down. And that's what that paper towel is for if I get anything on my tools. And I've got a variety of tools that I use. Just kind of experiment with what works best for you. This is one of those little, I don't know what's it called, angle chisel color shaper from Royal Sovereign. I really have no clue what they would use this for, but that's us glass artists. Go into a hardware store looking in the plumbing section to see if you can't find anything that works for glass, right? Just like Hobby Lobby, you get trapped in there, you walk around for hours trying to find something that might work for you because you don't know what section it's going to be in. So I put a little Celadon Opal down, and I'm going to put some salmon pink around that. I was not really sure what kind of design I'm going for here, but I figured I'd just do some maybe concentric circles because it's nice and easy. So when I'm building, what I found is that if you start in one spot and then kind of build around it, it's much easier to shape the frit at that point because then you've got a wall somewhere. So now I'm starting to build up around that center, right? And remember, when you're fusing, glass is going to try and reach 1/4 of an inch thick. Pate Verre is a little bit different because you're going to be controlling the movement of the glass with the temperature that you're using. So the temperature is going to go a little bit lower because I want it to keep that shape. I don't want it to go all glossy. But that doesn't mean that glass isn't trying to get to that shape. But at low temperatures, obviously, it's not going to be able to move. So I put it down, and then I'm wetting it here. I don't know if you can see that or not. And if you have questions, feel free to ask, but I may miss them because the setup, I don't really have a tripod. I've got my iPad set up here next to me, so I just have to peek over every once in a while to see what you're seeing. So I move it in, and it's much easier to move the frit after it's been soaked with the adhesive. If you're having problems where you're trying to move the frit and it's not stacking up really well, then you may not have enough adhesive on your frit because it becomes really easy to sculpt it after you have a good amount of adhesive on there. If it's sticking to your tools, the frit is sticking too much to your tools, it's also, again, a possibility that you don't have enough adhesive, so just give a little drop. And especially with this mold, it's porous, so I know it's going to soak up some of the adhesive as I start. Anyway, so that's kind of how that goes, and then I can pick another color and go around that too. So let's do some golden green opal. So I'm really liking some of these newer colors that Bullseye's come out with recently. This is like a 70s super ugly color, but it's funny. It doesn't mean I don't love it. I really do love it. It's the ugliest color, and I love it. Just like this, there's this Kokomo purple that I use in mosaics all the time. It is the ugliest purple, and I absolutely love it because it's so beautiful. I don't know how to explain that. It's so ugly, it's beautiful. So do that, and then again I'll come in here and wet it. So again, I found that the best way to work with this stuff is working dry with your frit and then soaking it. I haven't worked a lot with it where I mixed it up wet. I know some people that have done that, but for me it just gets really irritating because it sticks to my tools more than I would like it to. So I'll show you with this bowl. I plan on working the same way, except since it's a little bit more dimensional, I'm going to be tilting it a bit. At least that's the idea. I haven't really ever done with the bowl, so we'll see how that works. I might end up wetting it first and then trying to pack it in. So we'll see what happens. Anywho, I think I'm just going to finish this ring on this mold and then give that other mold a shot. And I don't foresee having any problems working right on top of that glass separator, even though it's still a little bit wet. I think it'll be totally fine. So, if I've got any colors, I want to get those stray colors in there. Some people are really persnickety about little stray colors sticking out and about, but I really don't work that way. I kind of like it when they intermingle a bit. But just to show you, it is possible to come in here and make all your lines really defined so you don't have any crossover. It's like when I was a little kid and on my plate when I was eating, nothing could touch, right? Some people are still like that. I've gotten over that. All right, so there's that for starters, right? And see how well it's sticking on there? It is fine frit, yeah. You could do this with medium frit, but it would be a little bit more difficult. The coarser the frit ends up going, the coarser the frit is, the less surface area there is for the particles to grab onto each other, right? So you end up having just points that you're trying to glue together. Whereas the fine frit, there's so much surface area for you to glue. It's like sand, you know, wet sand. So, well, let's give it a shot. I say I usually don't work this way, but here we go. I'm going to give it a shot. So I'm just going to take some of the golden green fine opal frit here and stick it in this container, and I'm going to wet it in advance so that I have a little sculptable stuff, right? So I'm going to get in there, and it's really hard to see. Let's see where my camera is, right there. You can kind of see. That one I went about 1/4 inch. I guess it really depends on your preference. Like I said, when you're fusing the glass, it's going to try and get to 1/4 inch. You could potentially mess with that with your firing schedule so it doesn't get to 1/4 inch, you know, so you have a thin-walled vessel. I don't know. And that's another thing. I'm not sure what firing schedule I'm going to use yet. Probably something in the lower 1400s, upper 1300s. So I've got this, and I'm going to go ahead and put on some gloves right now because I feel like I'm going to want to touch this. And if I touch it and I've got that liquid fusing adhesive on it, it's going to be really, really sticky. The best way to get the liquid fusing adhesive off of your hands after you've got it on yourself or any of your tools is to get a bit of a vegetable oil or lemon oil or just any kind of oil. Put a couple of drops in your hand, rub it around, and then wash your hands off with soap and water. Same thing with the tools. This is a designated brush for me. When I have designated tools for the liquid fusing adhesive, I don't bother cleaning them up, so I don't bother getting the adhesive out. I just let it sit there. Well, this brush tip is going to become really stiff, so the next time I use it, I need to re-wet it with some liquid fusing adhesive, and then it'll come back to normal. If you wanted to clean that brush out, you could put some olive oil in your hand, or canola oil, or lemon oil, whatever, cutter oil, put it in your hand and go like this for a little bit, get that oil in there really well, and then wash that off with soap and water, and that'll get the no adhesive out of there, okay? So, let's see. This is the vessel I'm going to start working with now. So, I've put the adhesive on some frit in advance. I've already said I don't normally work like this, but it's an experiment. It's play day in the studio, so let's see what happens. So I'm going to start, maybe I'll start here, and maybe I'm going to do some lines or something. Maybe I'll just do some like weird dots. That would probably be the easiest way to work. So I'm just going to pat that in there. It's all right. Just pat that in there nice and tight. Pack it up. Pack it in. Anybody? Okay. So I'm going to call that good. And see, I stand it up, it works really well. So there's my first little bit, and I've got a little bit of stuff in there still, so I'm just going to go ahead and empty the rest of that in the mold and pack it in another spot. Yeah, polka dots, why not? That could be fun. Improvise, right? You don't have to have a plan, especially if you're just playing. It's probably best not to have a plan, because if you're just playing and trying to figure something out, You don't want to waste a whole lot of time. Okay, so that wasn't sticking too well, so I want to make sure that I go in here and wet it down again. Move it over, pack it down. And I think I'm just going to go over the top of this with a little bit more adhesive too, just a touch more. Not so much that it moves and gets all liquidy and starts sliding, but enough that it's not going to fall into that space where it's not supported down there. So again, I have no idea if this is going to work. I'm playing. Larry asked me a question. I got an email from Larry and he said, can you use No Days liquid fusing adhesive to create Pate de Verre? And I said, you know what? I have no idea. Let's see. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm seeing. Okay, so I started by putting some of my frit in there. I'm going to do the artichoke opal fine frit now. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little polka dot of artichoke opal fine frit and get some scoops in there. And now that I've got my scoops in there, I want to wet it. So I'm going to come in here and looks like I'm using a lot, but this stuff comes out a drop at a time. So I'm really not using that much of it. That plate that I showed you earlier, the liquid fusing adhesive comes in a couple of sizes. This is the nice big 8-ounce bottle. This plate that I made earlier that was completely frit, you know, totally frit on a piece of clear. I can make 2+ plates this size with this technique and still have leftovers of the 4-ounce bottle, the half size bottle. So you don't really need a ton of it. Okay, so I'm mixing that up. It's sticking fairly well. I think it could use just a couple more drops. It's hard for me to, I should cut this in half, then you guys maybe could see it. Let's do that. Here I come. La 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 la. Hi. So I'm going to cut this guy down a little bit and then maybe you guys can actually see what I'm doing, huh? Thanks for hanging out with me. It's kind of lonely in the studio by yourself occasionally. I don't have a TV down here. I've got some speakers, but I don't have them hooked up. I need to get a new radio list, playlist. It's okay having music in your studio, but it's more fun when you have people to play with. Okay, so let's see if this works. There we go. You can kind of see what I'm doing now. Alright, so I've mixed that up a little bit. Looks like wet sand, wet frit. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to make another polka dot. About right there. And I think I'll add a little bit more fusing adhesive to get that to come together a little bit better. It's got a nice paste, but to really hold together well, there's just a certain consistency that you learn the more you use the liquid fusing adhesive. You just kind of see when you've got the right consistency, and that was, like, see how it's all over my spoon, and it wasn't coming together very easily. It was kind of looking a little dryish still, so I just needed to get a little bit more fusing adhesive on there. I'll wipe my spoon off again. Paper towel is good for that. Again, when I'm all finished, I'll take my spoon so I can save it. I'll put some olive oil in it, rub it around, and then wash it out with soap and water. It still seems a little bit dry. It could just be the color that I'm working with too, and it could just be the mold. I usually don't work in a mold directly, so like I said, welcome to my experiment. So I really want to pack this in here though. Come on. Pack, pack, pack. Okay, and we'll do another little guy over on the other side, maybe next to that little yellow polka dot. Maybe we'll build like a half a polka dot around the yellow polka dot because there's a little bit of yellow in here too. So maybe we'll come in here and kind of spread it around. Curious to see how this turns out when I fire it. If you guys are on Facebook, I will post pictures of the fired project on the No Days Fused Glass group page. So if you go in and search for a group on Facebook, it's the No Days Fused Glass group. Okay, so that's what I've got so far. See how well that stuff's holding together? I just soak that a little bit because I noticed one piece wanted to go running around still, so I'm going to hold him in place. So the liquid fusing adhesive, most adhesives in your kiln are going to burn off at around 600 degrees. The liquid fusing adhesive actually holds for quite a bit longer, so we'll see how well this holds after it's gone together. I don't know if it's going to fall down. I don't know if it's going to fall down on itself or if it'll actually stay where I want it to be. We'll find out. The adhesive holds till about 1,000, which is still too cold for the glass to start sticking together, but we'll see. So dry frit, I go in and wet it. Again, I normally do not work this way, but I'm experimenting today to see how it works. Alrighty, mix that around a little bit. Actually, you know what, I'm going to use my skewer to mix it around so if it's dry it doesn't stick on my spoon as much. So it looks, oh, it's like a snow cone. That's what it's like. So that's not bad, but I think it could use just a touch more. Feel like Julia Child's in the kitchen here. Oh yes, that looks nice. Oh, look at the texture. It's so nice. That's my Julia Child's French accent. It's not that great, sorry. Alright, so there's a hole in the bottom of this mold, and I'm going to go right over it. I'm going to try and see if I can't just create another little polka dot bottom of some sort, splotchy something or other. So you can see where it is. Maybe here in a second, let me pat it down a bit, and then I can turn it once it's patted down. And all right, there we go. So just patting it down into place. Again, if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask. If I don't get to it the first time, ask again, because maybe I didn't see it the first time. What's everybody up to today? Are you working in your studios? Are you hanging out at work, waiting to work in your studios? We have some. Ready? You have some. What do you have? Questions? Please ask some questions. Yup. Oh, let's see. What is your mold coated with? It is coated with, I coated it with the Unique Glass Colors glass separated. This bottle says Satellite Unique, but it's not. Ooh, cutting Murini sounds like fun. So it used to be Satellite Unique, now it's just Unique Glass Colors. What are you going to do with your Murini? I imagine you could use zip. You just want to be careful that it's not going to brush off. And then with all the frit that you're putting on there, if you're moving around a little bit, especially if you're building in your vessel, I think the zip might have a tendency to brush off. So I would just be careful about that is all. I am playing with all these fun colors that I haven't had a chance to play with yet. I got them but haven't done much. Do we need to vent? Oh, venting never hurts. You can either let this fully dry, the adhesive that is. Oh, that sounds exciting. A drop bases and human figure. I'd like to see that. If you let the liquid fusing adhesive dry completely, it doesn't stink up your space, but I tend to not have patience for that, and my kiln is in my garage, so I do vent it, and I just open the window in my kiln room, but just a little bit. And you don't need to vent the unique glass colors. I don't know, maybe that was your question too. But yeah, you don't need to vent that. Can you kiln wash the mold? Yes, absolutely. You can kiln wash the mold. That is my kiln wash. The glass separator. You know, that's my preferred kiln wash for molds, because if you weren't here earlier, basically once you've put this stuff on your molds, and you only need a really thin coat, but once you put it on your molds, you never have to prep them again. Mostly. There's always an exception to never, but let's see, I think, I don't know that I've ever had to recoat a mold with the unique glass colors. Oh, it dropped. You guys see that? My polka dot dropped. So, let's go right over it. Can you add powder wafers to the bowl after building it up? Maybe. I've got some hanging out from day before yesterday. I wonder how well they would. I would probably put them on and then cover them in frit. I feel like they would have a better chance of staying where I put them. And I don't know if this is going to stay after I get it in the kiln. It might not. It might just decide to fall down, because, I mean, there's really nothing supporting this. The wall goes straight up. So I didn't plan on putting anything on the inside of it, but I guess I could. I didn't plan on it, though. I'm just going to build it up kind of to that curve and just see how that works. Like I said, I have this other mold. That's going to work much better because it's pretty flat. Aw, happy birthday, though. We'll have it again. We'll have a webinar again. Not immediately, though. I need rest. It takes time to get ready for those. I was looking at my hours that I put into it, and it's 8 hours worth of prep, even though it's mostly all pre-recorded. I mean, there's 4 sections of like how-to that are pre-recorded, but even though there's 4 sections of pre-recording, I still put 13 hours into one of those things. And that's after I've got everything all together, so it's work, but I like it. It's fun. Then I don't have to travel. I do travel for classes, though, so you guys could always visit me. I'm going to be in Portland in a couple of weeks teaching at Ouroboros. We're going to be doing the Fused Glass Florals class. That is this guy right here, and he's got a matching little bowl to go with him. And that's working with frits and powders and some powder wafers too. Right? So each of the little plates they have, you make one big one and you make one little one, and then they kind of nest together like that. Isn't that cute? I love it. So pretty. Right? I am coming to Madison. We're going to do a full day powder wafer class in Madison, and then we're also going to do a jewelry class. But I don't know that I have any samples of that around right now. I should have a whole bunch, because I'm also getting ready to start making a webinar on that. Hey, Susan, how are you doing? So, maybe I'll slip on back over to the artichoke. Or no, celadon. We'll do celadon. When am I coming to Dallas? That's a good question. I don't know if I've ever been to Dallas. Is there, who's glass studios down there? I was in Hollander in Houston in February, and Rainbow Art Glass in New Jersey just got in touch with me, and they want to schedule me for this fall. So Township or Wall, New Jersey, Wall Township, that's it. Wall Township? I think that's the name where Rainbow Art Glass is, and somebody had asked me to see about scheduling something at Delphi, and the Society of American Mosaic Conference, Artists Conference, is next year in Detroit, so I might try and schedule something in the area to coincide with that trip. All right, so if you're just joining us, I'm working on an experiment here. Experimenting with Pate de Verre with No Days Liquid Fusing Adhesive. I had a question the other day. Somebody emailed me a question and said, it was Larry, oh, more fall. So I obviously need a little bit more glue to hold these things together. But but Larry called me or emailed me and said, can you use the No Days liquid fusing adhesive to create Pate de Verre? And I said, well, you know what, I'm not sure, let's find out. So I normally don't work this way where I make a paste with the adhesive first. So I'm just going to go in here, since everything's moving around so much, I'm just going to go in here and soak it a little bit more to get it to hold. I think having it in the mold starts to kind of wick away some of that moisture from the adhesive. So I'm just going to try and get it to stay where I put it. And then pack it in a little bit. And this also has to do with this mold too. Like this mold, if I just fire this mold, if I filled this mold all the way to the top and then just fired it, chances are that glass is just going to cave in on itself, cave in on itself, because there's no support on the sides of these walls, If you tried to put dry frit on there, it would fall. There's nothing holding it up, right? So the glue is going to burn out of the kiln at much lower temperatures than the glass is going to start to stick to itself. So you'd have to have, you could certainly stack these and then put another mold on the inside that would prevent things from falling down, right? So like those cabbage leaves that someone help me out, the higuchis, right? The higuchis make with Pate de Verre. They create two molds. They create a mold on the bottom of the leaf and a mold on the top, and then they fill the mold on the bottom, and then they place the mold on the top. So that kind of presses everything together and it holds it all together. So if I wanted to build all the way up the side of this vessel and then put something inside of it, like another mold with release so that nothing would fall when I'm firing, that would probably be the way to do it, right? So that guy, I'll probably just build it even all the way around to there, to there, and call that good. But I'm going to bring out this other one again to show you. So this is the one I started with. And this is a much safer way to build vertically, or horizontally, vertically, I don't know, directly into the mold, I guess, with frit, right? So, and this time I'm going to revert back here to the way that I normally work with frit and the liquid fusing adhesive. So I don't normally like to make a paste with it because the stuff is sticky and it gets all over. Notice I put my gloves on because I knew that if I'm getting frit soaked with the adhesive everywhere that I was going to get it all over myself too. So I just put the gloves on so I didn't have to worry about touching it all. The No Days liquid fusing adhesive is super sticky stuff, and if you get it on your hands and you want to get rid of it, it's easiest if you actually rub some olive oil or veggie oil or even lotion into your hands and then wash that off, because that just wicks up the adhesive and soaks out, then allows you to wash it off really easily. So on this guy, I'm just building a simple bullseye ring. So this is the way I typically work with frit. And typically when I'm working with frit, I'm not working directly on the mold. I'm working directly on a piece of glass, like this guy back here, right? So this guy right here, I built upside down. So there's a clear piece of glass. And I built this way. So there's a clear piece of glass, and then I built starting in the middle and just kind of built outwards, and then all the way to the outside I fire it upside down, and then when I go to fire it again, I turn it on the flip side, and I decorate it before firing it again, and then slump it, right? So that's how I normally work when I'm working with the frit and the No Days liquid fusing adhesive. However, I had an email from Larry, and he asked if you could do Pate de Verre with the No Days fusing adhesive. And I said, well, let's find out. So that's what I'm doing. It's a play day in the studio. Just did a powder wafer webinar on Saturday and need some time to re-energize. We're working on getting some more webinars together. We're going to do some mosaic and more fusing webinars. But my next one is going to be a mosaic jewelry webinar. And I'm not ready to film that yet. It takes a lot of time and editing. So I figured I would just play instead with a video that I don't have to edit and I don't have to get all pretty for, and yeah. Thanks for being here. So, just needed to unwind. I've had a pretty stressful couple of weeks. I just got back from, well, not just got back, but it feels like it because I have had so much to do since I did get back. So, of course, the Las Vegas Glasscraft and Bead Expo was just recently, and directly following that was the Society of American Mosaic Artists Conference in San Diego, so that was a nice little unwind for me after Las Vegas. And then, after getting back from that, I had to finish up a project that I've been working on with a group of elementary school kids. I worked with this elementary school in Millard, Nebraska. I went up there every Wednesday this last school year and worked with every class 2 times. We made 2 projects, one that they got to take home and one that they were going to contribute to the community mosaic. So 2 days after I got back from San Diego was the community build day, where 600 kids came into the gym and we all worked on a mosaic, and then I got to bring it home and grout it and get it ready to mount and then deliver it. And just last Friday was the opening. Thank you, Jody. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and that piece looks really great. I'm so excited with how it turned out. It was a really great piece, and those kids just did an amazing job. So I feel like Friday was the culmination of a spring-long, a spring full, I guess, a spring full of just deadlines and obligations. And for the last 2 days, I've just been unwinding and playing because I need it. So yesterday, I actually got to take a class. Oh, this little spoon I got from my friend Sharon. She worked in a nursing home, and they used them there for something. This I'm not going to cap with clear. This is just going to get fired directly into the mold like this. So it'll get fired at a low temperature. It shouldn't. The only thing that I'd be concerned about with the zip is the tendency for the zip to brush off. So while I'm working here, you'll notice that I get this wet and then I move the frit around. And there is the possibility, I think, where you could actually inadvertently scratch the zip, and that could affect it, right? So what I'm using here is the Unique Glass Colors separator. Said this a couple times. Getting near the end of my bottle. I've had this stuff forever, so long that it says Satellite Unique Glass, and it hasn't been Satellite Unique Glass for like maybe 10 years now. It is just Unique Glass Colors glass separator, and mine is way watered down. I always water it down before I use it. I think I only had a little bit in the bottle, so I just went ahead and watered down the whole bottle. But I brush that onto my molds, and I never have to recoat them. Never. Has it been 6 years? Yeah. The one caveat with the Unique Glass separator, and this is the same with like any other kiln wash that I found, aside from Zip, I think. Zip is shiny enough that the glass is able to slide along the glass. And other kiln washes I've noticed with really deep vessels, they can actually get marks and texture from getting caught up on the sides of the vessel as they're trying to slip. And it's possible you could rectify that with a lower firing schedule. But with the Unique Glass Colors, they've got this stuff called Free. It's kind of like a little dusting of something that you put on after the Unique the glass separator. And then that allows you to, it allows the glass to kind of slide along without getting hung up. And I think I've talked to Margot Clark, and she's actually, I think, uses the glass separator on her kiln shelf. I've never chosen to do that because it's impossible to get it off. So if you did have glass stick to it, then it would be impossible to get off. But I think what she does is she uses the Free every time. And so she just pats that down, and that's the only thing that the glass is touching, so she doesn't have to worry about about it catching. So this mold here is much flatter than the other mold that I was working with, right? This mold here, really steep sides, and that's the only reason I did this, was to see how well the glass would hold. I mean, that's the only reason I chose that mold, was just to see how well the glass would hold. You could potentially put another mold inside of it to prevent that glass from falling in on itself, but that glass will likely fall in on itself, especially if I were to go all the way to the top of the mold. This mold, the glass is able to lay fairly flat, so with gravity, this glass isn't going anywhere. Which means that the glue is just making sure it's helping me sculpt it, build it up, and then make sure it doesn't go anywhere on my way to the kiln. And then when it burns off in the kiln, I will have no problems with my glass moving anywhere. So basically I'm creating a Pate de Verre, something or other. I guess it'll be a plate. Actually, it'd be really cool. It would be really cool. So I've been wanting to work with my flowers a little bit more, except make them freestanding. Because Creative Paradise has some really great molds lately. Those flower molds. Has anybody been able to play with those? I'm in love. I got a whole bunch. But I've only been able to play with one yet. And I want to play around with a lot more. And I want to make some glass inserts for the middle of my flowers, so they, you make a hole in that initial flower, so that you can put a pipe of some sort through, right? And then, depending on what you use, I was thinking some sort of flat pad, some screw head with a flat pad that would kind of connect to the front of the pipe, and then something like this could go on that screw head. So you would have this kind of cool middle of your flower, right? So that means I don't want to go all the way to the edges, but maybe I could do something that was a little scalloped, so like maybe just a wavy edge here, and then that would, with some stripes even. I don't know, that sounds like I'm getting crazy now. Maybe stringers would be good for my stripes. Maybe that's what I'll do. Okay, so now that I have a plan, now that I know what this is going to be, we'll go ahead and finish it off. So this last little bit is going to be just kind of a wavy design. So it's not going to be really thick. I want this to be somewhat thin, somewhat delicate, because it's going to be the middle of my flower design. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this around here. I want to get to the edge-ish a little bit so that there's enough of it sticking up that it actually has kind of a 3D effect instead of just being flat, because what's the point of working in a mold instead of just on the shelf if it's going to be flat? And when I'm firing this, I just need to remember that I don't want to go too hot because I don't want to lose my shape. I would like to keep the granular look. So I'll have to figure this out. Maybe 1350. Maybe 1350 is what I'll go to. That would keep it nice and granular-y still, I think, as long as I don't hold it there for too long. And it'll build that shape for me. It might shrink in on itself a little bit too, which could give it a little bit more structure, because it is going to be, I mean, this is all just frit right now, and I have not built, it's like normally when I'm building with frit, I build it up, if it's only frit, I would build it up to about 1/4 inch, but I want this to be a little bit more fragile and delicate, because it's going to be my flower, the middle of my flower, my dimensional flower. So I don't want to go too high when I fire this. And let's just make it kind of a wavy edge. Kind of look like maybe a hibiscus or I don't know. A something, that's for sure. Morning glory? Maybe a morning glory. Kind of looks like a morning glory. All right. I think that's good. I might add some stringers in there just to kind of give it some lines or something. I don't know. I guess, yeah. So I could add some stringers in there and maybe some little frit balls, and then those will be like the stamens coming out of the middle. Unless I want those to be dimensional as well, in which case I would probably end up beading them. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I should put a little hole in the middle so I could do that. So we'll put a little hole in the middle here. And that will be for when I want to put my beaded wire stamens through the middle of my hole. Yeah, that's what I'll say. Alrighty. So that's kind of it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I think I'm going to get ready to clean up and do the next project, which is getting ready to shoot another webinar. It's going to be a mosaic jewelry webinar with No Days Groutless and some bezels. And I would show you some samples if they weren't all upstairs in my bedroom and not down here in my studio. I'm not quite sure where they are. So thanks for joining me. It's nice to have company in the studio instead of hanging out here by myself, talking to myself, because I do tend to go crazy when I start talking to myself. It gets the opposite of laughable. Bye. Thank you for coming and hanging out. We'll see you next time. Feel free to follow No Days Adhesive so you guys can catch the next one. They're kind of impromptu. I just do them whenever I feel like playing in my studio and not editing a video, but just putting one together real quick and talking to people. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And remember, if you want to see what these look like fired, head on over to the No Days Fused Glass group on Facebook, and that's where I'm going to post some pictures. Thanks for coming. Get glassy. It's Patty, right? It's like Get Glassy is Patty, right? Oh, Paula, you just missed it. I'm taking off. But feel free to watch the replay. It's coming up next. Patty, I remember I'm Calyx Ann on Etsy, so I've been around for a while, but I'm not very active on Etsy, unfortunately. Tony, bye Tony. Alrighty, we'll see you guys.